You can be intelligent, educated, successful, and still make terrible decisions with money. Because money is one of the few areas of life where knowing more does not always mean behaving better. A brilliant person can panic when markets fall. A successful professional can earn an extraordinary income and still spend almost everything. Someone who understands investing can still become greedy when everyone else appears to be getting rich. And someone with an average income can quietly build financial security through patience, restraint, and consistency. That is the uncomfortable idea at the heart of Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money. Doing well with money is not simply about intelligence, it is about behavior. And behavior becomes hardest to control precisely when money feels most important. When we are afraid, when we are excited, when we are comparing ourselves to someone else, when we feel behind, or when we become convinced that this time we cannot possibly be wrong. And once you understand that, money begins to look less like a mathematics problem and much more like a human problem. Think about the way most of us imagine financial success. We assume the person who knows the most should eventually have the most. The smartest investor should make the best decisions. The person with the highest income should become the wealthiest. But real life does not always work that way, because there is a difference between knowing what to do and being able to continue doing it when your emotions are telling you something else. Imagine two people. One earns an enormous salary. They drive an expensive car. They live in a beautiful house. They wear expensive clothes. From the outside, they look wealthy. But almost every increase in income creates an increase in lifestyle. More money comes in, and more money goes out. Now imagine someone else. Their income is much less impressive. Their lifestyle doesn't attract attention. They don't look particularly rich. But month after month, they quietly keep part of what they earn. They invest patiently. They avoid unnecessary debt, and they leave room for things to go wrong. Which person is actually wealthier? That question reveals one of the strangest things about money. We can easily see what people spend. We cannot easily see what they keep. The expensive car is visible. The money that was not spent on the car is invisible. The luxury holiday is visible. The investment account is invisible. The enormous house is visible. Financial independence is mostly invisible. And because human beings naturally compare themselves using what they can see, we often end up competing with appearances. Someone buys something impressive, and we assume they can comfortably afford it. Someone posts a beautiful lifestyle, and we assume their financial life must be equally beautiful. Then, without realizing it, their spending begins influencing ours. This is where money stops being about utility and starts becoming a way to communicate status. We don't simply ask, "Do I need this?" We begin asking, "What will this say about me? Will I look successful? Will people respect me? Will I finally feel like I'm doing well?" But there is a painful irony here. Often, when we buy expensive things to impress people, what we really want is their admiration. Yet people usually don't admire us as much as we imagine. They admire the thing. They see the car and imagine themselves driving it. They see the house and imagine themselves living there. We may spend years chasing symbols of success, only to discover that the approval we wanted was never really available for purchase. And this brings us to one of the most important distinctions in financial life. Being rich and being wealthy are not the same thing. Rich can be visible. Wealth often isn't. Wealth is the money you haven't spent yet. It is flexibility. It is time. It is the ability to survive an unexpected expense without panic. It is the ability to leave a terrible situation because you are not financially trapped inside it. And perhaps most importantly, wealth can give you control over your time. That may be one of money's greatest rewards. Not a more expensive watch, but more ownership of the hours the watch is measuring. The ability to say, "I don't have to make this decision purely because I'm desperate for the next paycheck. I can wait. I can think. I can choose." That kind of freedom rarely photographs well, but it can completely change the way a life feels. So why do intelligent people still sacrifice that freedom? One reason is that humans are remarkably bad at deciding what is enough. Imagine that you finally reach the income you once dreamed about. For a while, it feels incredible. Then you meet someone earning twice as much. Suddenly, your achievement feels smaller. You buy the house you wanted. Then you see a larger one. You reach one financial milestone. Then the finish line moves again. There is always another level, another person, another number, another lifestyle. If your definition of success depends on having more than the people around you, there may never be a point at which you finally feel successful, because there will almost always be someone with more. And that makes the concept of enough incredibly powerful. Enough does not mean abandoning ambition. It does not mean refusing to grow. It means knowing what you are unwilling to risk, simply to acquire something you do not truly need. Because some people lose what they desperately need, while chasing what they merely want. They risk their savings, their relationships, their reputation, their peace, sometimes even their freedom, not because they had nothing, but because what they had stopped feeling like enough. Knowing when to stop is not a lack of ambition. Sometimes it is evidence that your ambition is finally under your control. There is another reason money decisions become difficult. We underestimate the power of time. Everyone loves dramatic financial stories. The investment that exploded overnight, the business that suddenly became enormous, the person who became wealthy remarkably quickly. Patience doesn't make a very exciting headline, but compounding rarely looks impressive at the beginning. Imagine investing a modest amount consistently. After a month, almost nothing seems different. After a year, perhaps the result still feels disappointing. And this is where many people become vulnerable. They begin looking for something faster, a shortcut, a prediction, a perfect investment, something that will finally accelerate the process. But the desire to get rich quickly can destroy the conditions required to become wealthy slowly. Compounding needs something extremely simple and extremely difficult. Time. Not constant brilliance, not endless activity. Time. A good financial decision that survives for decades can become extraordinarily powerful, but it cannot compound if impatience keeps interrupting it. This is why financial success often requires a strange skill: the ability to leave a good strategy alone. That sounds easy, until markets fall, until everyone around you seems to be making more money, until the news becomes frightening, until someone tells you that your strategy is outdated, until you watch another person become rich faster. Then patience begins to feel like stupidity, and action begins to feel intelligent, even when action may be exactly what hurts you. This is where risk enters the story. We like to believe successful outcomes are completely earned, and unsuccessful outcomes are completely deserved. But reality is messier. Skill matters, hard work matters, discipline matters, decision-making matters, but luck and risk also matter. Two people can make similar decisions and receive very different outcomes. One business launches at exactly the right moment. Another encounters an economic crisis nobody predicted. One investor takes a risk and becomes celebrated as a genius. Another takes a similar risk and loses everything. This does not mean outcomes are random. It means we should be careful about the lessons we extract from them. Do not automatically assume that every successful person made perfect decisions. And do not automatically assume that every person who failed was foolish. Study patterns, not just outcomes. Because if you copy someone's success without understanding the risks they survived, you may be copying the least visible part of their story. And this leads to something incredibly practical. You need room for error. Most people build plans around what they expect to happen. But life has a habit of producing things nobody expected. A job disappears, an expense arrives, a market falls, a business struggles, a family situation changes. A plan that looked perfect on paper suddenly meets reality. If your financial life only works when everything goes according to plan, then it is not a strong plan. It is a fragile one. A margin of safety may look inefficient when everything is going well. Extra savings sitting quietly in an account can feel boring. Being conservative can make you feel as though you're missing opportunities. But that buffer buys something valuable: survival. And survival matters because you cannot benefit from long-term compounding if one bad period removes you from the game entirely. Sometimes the smartest financial strategy is not maximizing every possible return. It is making sure you can continue. This is also why different people can make completely different financial decisions, and both believe they are being rational. We often forget that everyone has a different history with money. Someone who grew up during financial instability may see debt differently from someone who never experienced it. Someone who watched their parents lose everything may approach investing differently from someone who entered the market during years of growth. Someone who struggled for basic security may value cash in a way that seems overly cautious to someone else. We don't make financial decisions inside spreadsheets. We make them inside our personal histories. Our experiences teach us what feels safe, what feels dangerous, what feels normal. And sometimes, what feels normal to us is simply what we happen to experience. Understanding this can make you less judgmental of other people's financial choices, and more curious about your own. Why do you want what you want? Why does a certain amount of money make you feel safe? Why are you afraid of a particular risk? Why do you feel behind when you see someone else's success? Are you making a financial decision because it genuinely fits your life, or because somebody else's life has become your reference point? That last question matters enormously, because money is deeply personal. The correct financial life is not necessarily the one that produces the most impressive number. It is the one that helps you build the life you actually value. For one person, that may mean building a company. For another, owning a modest home without financial stress. For someone else, it may mean having enough savings to spend more time with their children, or the freedom to leave work they hate, or the ability to help their parents, or simply sleeping at night without worrying about the next unexpected bill. Money is a tool, and a tool is only useful when you know what you want it to build. So perhaps becoming better with money begins with fewer predictions and better questions. Instead of asking, "How can I get rich quickly?" ask, "How can I avoid financial decisions that could destroy years of progress?" Instead of asking, "How much can I earn?" ask, "How much of what I earn can I keep?" Instead of asking, "What is everyone else buying?" ask, "What actually improves my life?" Instead of asking, "How can I never lose?" ask, "How can I survive being wrong?" And instead of constantly asking, "Do I have more than other people?" ask something much harder. Do I have enough for the life I actually want? Because the person who understands every financial formula, but cannot control fear, greed, comparison, and impatience, may still make terrible decisions. While someone with less technical knowledge, but more patience, more humility, and more control over their behavior, may quietly build something much stronger. That is what makes the psychology of money so fascinating. Your financial future is not shaped only by what you know. It is shaped by what you do when the future becomes uncertain. What you do when everyone else appears richer. What you do when markets become frightening. What you do when an opportunity feels too good to miss. What you do when your ego wants to prove something. And what you do when nobody is watching. Because money doesn't simply reveal how well you understand numbers. Sometimes, it reveals how well you understand yourself. And perhaps the smartest financial decision you can make is to stop trying to look wealthy and quietly build a life that gives you something far more valuable: freedom. If this gave you a different way to think about money, share it with someone who might need it. And if you enjoy turning powerful ideas from great books into practical lessons you can actually use in everyday life, subscribe to Vera Mind. There are many more books to explore, and many more ideas worth understanding.